this is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're looking at the Moto X. Finally, available first on AT&T in the United States. It's $199 with contract for the 16 gig version, $249 for the 32 gig version. And if you go to the store, you can get it, well, like we did right here. We have the standard black woven look. There's also a white woven look, or you can do customize online and get a whole bunch of different color options available. And we're going to look at it now. So this is the Moto X, and I know some of you have been wondering, what's all the hype about? The specs are not the super duper best possible that you can get, yet obviously Motorola, and thereby Google, who owns Motorola now, are putting all their marketing dollars behind this phone to really push it and to make you notice it. Well, I can tell you it is a very nice phone, and there is more to a smartphone these days than just specs. First off, let's take a look at the design. It's very hand-friendly, and Motorola makes a big deal of that. Now, I have big hands, and I've been using the HTC One, the Galaxy S4, even the Note 2, and I can tell you this is refreshing. You still get a 4.7-inch display, same size as the HTC One, but a much smaller casing, and a very hand-friendly, comfortable design. You hold it, you just want to keep holding it, and that's an important thing to do with the phone, because you get somebody starting a relationship with it, shall we say. They start to feel like it's an extension of their lifestyle, and not something that's kind of awkward to hold and prone to dropping. The design is pleasing. I wouldn't call it wildly imaginative or different. There's really only so much you can do with the candy bar phone. It's available with either a black face or a white face. Even if you go with the Moto Maker customized colors on the back, there's only two face color options. Obviously, we have the black face right here. Notice there's software buttons instead of capacitive buttons on the front. And notice how colorful and sharp and bright the display is. This is an AMOLED display. I like AMOLED a lot, honestly. It doesn't have that problem with color bias, and the colors are really very vivid. And the whites tend to be pretty white. So it's a pleasing looking display. It is a 720p display, and these days when full HD is the rage in smartphones, it's 1280 by 720. In my book, that's not a deal breaker, because this is a very sharp looking phone, and I am used to the HTC One with its really awesome Super LCD3 display. But we'll discuss the display a little bit more later. If you look at the design, all about curves, a little bit of that kind of older Nexus style curve that we've seen and like so much. Simple design. There's a SIM card door right here. You have to use a paperclip or a pokey tool to get it out, and this uses a nano SIM just like the iPhone 5. So those of you who like to switch SIMs between your phones, unless your other phone is an iPhone 5, will probably find that annoying. You might have to find one of those adapters that lets you put a nano SIM into a micro SIM holder so you can use it in other phones. This one has the black woven pattern. There's also one with white, and this is Kevlar mixed with a composite, and I kind of like the way it looks. It's got a little bit of the pattern showing through of Kevlar, and it's a matte finish, soft touch. It feels good in the hand. It does pick up some fingerprints, but not too much. And to me, even though I like the white woven look also, and both of those will be stocked in AT&T stores, this one looks a little bit less cheap. The white one, the plastic on the edges, looks a little, well, cheap. This one here, the edges made up pretty nicely too, and again, it's a pretty nice fluid look. Here's your headphone jack up here. We've got microphone hole there. On this side, we have our volume rocker. We have our power button rather right here, and the micro USB port is on the back. Got a front camera, and we have a 10 megapixel rear camera that we'll talk about some more later. So overall, a nice design, and if you want to go and get one of these customized at Moto Maker, it's available with, I think it is 6 different cool colors, which means your blue, your green kind of colors, 7 warm colors, reds and burgundies, Merlot kind of colors, no orange, sadly I love orange, and you got your choice of 7 highlight colors for things like the volume controls. You'll have a little distinctive highlighting here, and again, always black or a white face. You choose which one if you go with Moto Maker. As to what's inside the phone, even though Google does own Motorola, we're not talking Android 4.3, it's Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean. Not a real deal breaker. There's not a whole lot of difference going on, and it's pretty clean. For those of you who like the Nexus phones because there's not much customization going on, you're probably going to like that. Where Motorola did customize is in the usability of the phone. So what are those usability features? You can actually tell the phone to do things or ask it questions, including Google searches, just using a phrase, and it's going to record your voice 3 times. So if somebody else says that phrase, which I won't say right now because it's going to launch it, but it's, shh, okay, Google now. If you say that and then say what it is you want to do, it will do it. Also, it has assist. Assist is pretty darn handy and brilliant. So when you're driving, for example, it's going to use a GPS so it knows, and you can tell it to talk to me, read text messages, and tell me who's calling. You can have it automatically resume the music play too. If you want to avoid meeting interruptions, you can do that for sleeping. Right here, you can set the hours when you want it to be quiet automatically, and you can also tell it, well, if my favorites call or somebody keeps calling repeatedly, i.e. it must be an emergency, you should let the call through if you wanted to do that. So those are the things that make this a more human and usable phone. Now that's something that hasn't been paramount among Android phones that are more kind of going to town, going crazy on the specs. We see the resolutions going up and up and up to the point where nobody can see the difference between 292 ppi and 334 ppi pixel density. We see processors that are just about sufficient to run a Windows tablet at this point. So instead of focusing on those things, they went with the usability things. Instead of mucking up the UI with lots of Chrome and special effects and stuff like that, they went with straight usability things that make the phone feel more personal, more usable to you. So that's a selling point. And that's why you're looking at a phone that's $199, because they spent a lot of money on the software for developing this guy. And also, if you want to take advantage of that Moto Maker, the customized colors, that costs some money too. And that's being built in America, and we all know that costs more. It's being built in Fort Worth by 2,000 Americans who are working hard right now, putting together all sorts of colored Moto X's apparently, because Motorola says they've already got more demand than they can handle. When I was mentioning how compact the phone is, I'm going to show you this compared to the Droid Ultra on Verizon that just came out, which is really the same phone in terms of the internals, just a 5-inch display, still the same resolution, but a much bigger phone, really. You're still looking at one of those big 5-inch phones. Now, which of these fits easier in your hand and your pocket? I think you can guess, and we put them one on top of each other. And you can see that the footprint is significantly different, and it does make a difference in your hand and in your pocket. Droid Ultra also has a gloss back, which you can see is already full of fingerprints. A sad, sad thing. If you get the Droid Max with the bigger battery, then you lose the ability to blind people doing this, and it's a nice matte finish, but here's the difference. Droid Ultra is also $199 with contract on Verizon. And now we have it next to the Samsung Galaxy S4, also a 5-inch display, also a bigger phone, really noticeably different in size there. Now with the Samsung Galaxy S4, you are getting a 1080p display and some more cores in your processor, so there's trade-offs there. And lastly, here it is next to my HTC One, which looks significantly taller, even though it also has a 4.7-inch display. The boom sound speakers, top and bottom, are obviously taking up some space there, but yeah, once again, more pocketable, also a bit lighter. And they're all pretty thin phones, so in terms of thinness, you're not talking much of a difference with these guys. So in terms of software, it's not too mucked up by AT&T. We don't have too much carrier bloatware going on. Of course, we have all the Google applications that you could possibly want on here preloaded. Google Hangouts, Google+, Google Play Music, Google Play Store, of course, Google Play Books. Quick Office is on here now. It's a full version, so you can view, edit, and create MS Office documents. I put on Riptide GP. We have visual voicemail, always nice to have on AT&T, and we have access to the account manager on AT&T as well. So pretty clean, and the basic Android way of doing things for widgets. You got your calendar, you got Google Play widgets, email, Gmail, all the basic stuff is on there. Of course, any third-party apps that you put on there, they might have their own widgets too, and those will show up. Likewise, settings is pretty much standard vanilla Android. You drag that down, you get your notifications. We have access to settings here. Those of you who are familiar with Nexus phones will recognize that. And if you want to see all settings, you can tap right over there. And again, pretty much standard stuff. This is a 16 gig model, and it has about 12 gigs free out of the box. Again, there is a 32 gig model for those of you who need more storage, and Google says there will be a developer edition also, which should be unlocked, and will have 32 gigs of storage. We don't know what the price is going to be on that guy yet. Inside you have dual band Wi-Fi. We have Miracast for wireless display, Bluetooth 4.0 LE plus EDR, GPS inside, as well as NFC. The AT&T model has HSPA+, 3G, and 4G LTE, and reception and data speeds have been quite good. Motorola generally makes a good voice phone, though we found the Droid Ultra, which should have the same internals, wasn't quite so crisp and clear, but this guy, very good for voice calls. Data speeds on AT&T are always excellent in our area in Dallas, and you can see the speeds we've got. In fact, we'll run a test right now. And that's actually one of the lowest speeds that we've gotten so far. upload speeds were faster than the download speeds, and you can see some of our most recent results right there. So as high as over 21 megabit per second down and 6.8 up. In this case, we almost had a flip-flop where we had 13.3 megabit down and 17 up, so a little strange there. The dialer interface is once again very Nexus-like, very bold, very simple, and you also have access to your favorites and to your call log right there too, so things are easy to do, and you can use voice commands to call somebody as well. So speaking of voice commands, let's test that out right now. You have to say, "Okay, Google now," to start it up, and I'm trying to say it softly so it doesn't hear me, and then you tell it what it is you want to do. "Okay, Google now, what time is it?"
The time is 4:20 p.m.
So they're trying to be a little Siri-like here. "Okay, Google now, find pizza."
There are several listings for pizza.
So you get the idea. You can use it to call people, you can use it to launch applications. It's pretty darn useful, and it doesn't have to be on. You don't even have to have the screen on. The screen can be actually just off sitting on your desk. It's always listening. That's because Motorola went with a custom processor. They call it their X8 computing platform, and what that is a Snapdragon S4 Pro, but it's the different S4 Pro. Instead of being the usual quad core, it's 1.7 gigahertz dual core for your processing, and they have different processors to handle things like the voice recognition, basically DSP processors on board. While we're speaking of specs, it also has 2 gigs of RAM on board, which is pretty much standard for your higher-end Android phone these days, so it's got enough memory to run your applications, and since it doesn't have a heavy UI overlay, other than the fact it's always listening to you, for example, it's not going to do too much. And it has the handy-dandy, well, the screen is off, but you want to know stuff, and you don't want to have to hit the power button and wake up the phone all the time, so it's got motion sensors in here, and it knows if you're moving it around, taking it out of your pocket, for example, and it wakes it up. And there, if you had any status information about emails and stuff, that would also show up, and it's also quicker to unlock it that way too. Phone has GPS, of course, NFC, Bluetooth 4.0, LE plus EDR, and Wi-Fi 802.11b GNAC dual band. The Moto X has a 2 megapixel front camera, and it has a rear 10 megapixel camera with their RGB clear pixel, which is supposed to let in more light and more color and be, well, obviously more effective. And in fact, it does do that. For some reason, it did better than the Droid Ultra for us in taking pictures, and it handles low light situations quite nicely. It does do very natural, nice, sharp colors outdoors. The one thing you have to watch out for is this camera lens. If it gets dirty, everything looks hazy and cloudy. Usually, today's camera phones are not so prone to having problems with that. So that's something to be mindful of. The camera also has slow motion video and tap to focus. We'll show you that. Also, they've done some usability stuff to make that easier as well, which is pretty nice. Slightly slower to focus though because of that RGB-C technology that they're using, but not so slow. But I'm not sure it would be the perfect thing to say to capture sporting events. If your phone is off or if it's on and you want to just launch the camera, you don't actually have to do anything other than, well, in fact, let's go completely off so you can see. 2 flips of the wrist. And it's launched the camera interface. And as it tells you here, swipe this way to go gallery, this way to go settings. And if you want to see what the settings are, again, Google loves their wheel, as we commented with the Droid Ultra. At least this is bigger and not floating, a little easier to deal with. And that's tap to focus. Right there, we're turning that on. We have slow motion video as an option. We have panorama here. We're going to turn that off. You can control your shutter speed right there. And you can turn the flip your wrist thing on or off as well. Other than that, the settings are pretty basic. Geolocation, your flash control. Do you want HDR mode on auto, on or off? So not a wild collection of settings. So with the tap to focus, just tap where you want to take the picture. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to run and try to use an on-screen shutter button, something like that. It makes taking pictures actually a lot easier. So nice little bit for usability there. And you can get to the gallery just by a swipe like that. And there's the last picture we took. It's giving me some instructions on that. And it does a good job of capturing colors and sharpness in detail. That's pretty good. Again, it's 10 megapixel camera. And all sorts of exciting yogurts. So you can read the signs and the prices, you can read all the labels on it. So no complaints with the camera. The phone has a 2200 milliamp lithium-ion battery that's sealed inside, and Motorola has done a funny thing here. They claim 24 hours of mixed use. Instead of saying how many hours of talk time or how many hours of video watching, they just say mixed use. So what that means is screen on time and screen off time. And I can tell you that it does indeed have good battery life, despite the fact that it's always listening for your voice and using the GPS as well. For example, it knows if you're in the car using the GPS and it switches to car mode. Battery life has been good. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get 24 hours of screen on time. That isn't what it is. It means it's going to get you through 24 hours of mixed use. Playing some videos, doing your email, web browsing, listening to some music, and having the screen off when you're not doing anything, when it's in your pocket, when you're sleeping, all that kind of thing. So yes, in that respect, 24 hours. In terms of actual screen on time, you're still looking at pretty much your normal smartphone screen on time at the better end, up to about 9 hours, which is a bit better than the Samsung Galaxy S4. But then Galaxy S4 has a quad-core CPU and a higher resolution display. For web browsing, you get Chrome here. Google does not include the WebKit web browser anymore. Usually other manufacturers will include that if they want to customize the browser in some way. And you can see what our keyboard's like here. We've got fairly easy to use keyboard, and it's a little hard to see. That we have, if you press and hold, you can get the numbers right there, but they've made those really teeny, so at first you might not even notice that. We have haptic feedback. And we're doing this over AT&T's 4G LTE connection. You can see how white the whites are. And it's nice and fast, and pinch zooming is good. And the text is quite sharp, too, even though this is 720p, and these days everybody thinks they need a full HD display. Honestly, you've got plenty of pixel density here, and this is a very nice display, so we're not seeing any aliasing or staircasing that is jaggy text, nothing like that. And we'll check out video playback, and look at our new Nokia Lumia 925 video review. Good page load times there. And you can hear the speaker, which is about 2/3 volume right now. It's a rear-firing speaker. It's reasonably loud. Won't beat the HTC Boom Sound stereo speakers in terms of quality or volume, but still not bad.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the Nokia Lumia 925, available on T-Mobile in the United States. Finally, a high-end Windows phone.
So it looks good, plays well, and fairly natural sounding speaker. I think that sounded kind of like me, even though it's coming from a teeny little speaker that's on the back of our phone. Right here, a little hard to see the little grill dots that are inside our Kevlar pattern, but that's where the speaker is. Good that it's up top, so if you're holding the phone at the bottom, you won't be muffling the speaker. Lastly, we're going to talk about benchmarks. This scores 8,157 on Quadrant. That's a pretty good score. That's not as good as the HTC One and the Samsung Galaxy S4, but it's better than most other phones on the market today. Very healthy score. Really fast enough to do anything you want to do with the phone, including 3D games. On to 18,462 for a score there. And on graphics benchmark, otherwise known as GL Benchmark 2.7 for the Egypt HD 2.5 test, it scored 53 frames per second on screen. That's a good performance number right there. It does have Adreno 320 graphics, just like your standard S4 Pro quad-core would have. So you got the graphics punch there for playing games. On SunSpider JavaScript test, it scored 1,097, also a good showing. So let's test out a game and see how it does. So now we're going to test out Riptide GP2, which has Tegra enhancements like the splashing water, which we won't see here because this is obviously not a Tegra CPU. Nice screen, good blacks. AMOLED is great for those blacks. Nice and sharp looking. Obviously it plays very fluently. Plenty of detail. Nice water effects on the surface of the water. The sunlight that we saw. So nice, really. So it might not be quite as fast on benchmarks as the Samsung Galaxy S4, the HTC One, but honestly, it's got all the power that you need inside. So that's the Moto X. It's available now on AT&T. It's coming to all the other major carriers sometime in the future. We don't know when. If you're an AT&T customer, you can use the Moto Maker customization and choose your colors if you want to do that. And all in all, it's a nice phone. It's really a phone that's about ease of use and the pleasure of use, not so much about the specs. That might be a dangerous thing to do in the world of Android that's very specs driven, but we applaud Motorola and Google for trying. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of the Moto X, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.